Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Okay, so you guys, we are 117 years old. So there's been many families that have come through this community. Many of us are still here. Many of us come back to celebrate, to acknowledge and recognize the contributions of African Americans in this community. Our cornerstone and our anchor and our celebrated history is here at First Baptist Church of Venice. Yay! Okay, so after 4 years of fighting and appealing and striving and overcoming, First Baptist Church of Venice, this church right here, and its lots surrounding across the street and in back of are historic cultural landmarks for First Baptist Church of Venice. Let me hear everybody say amen.
Amen.
Amen. So today we're inviting those of us who have worked hard to make this happen. Some of us are here. I want to just mention Ingrid. Where are you? Thank you for all of your work. Yes, indeed. And Margaret, who is across the street. And Eileen. And Laddie, Fannie Lou Hamer, who is standing.
You didn't change my name. I thought I was Malcolm.
Well, you were Malcolm, but you know, Fannie Lou came before Malcolm. And so standing right here or sitting right here on the steps was the beginning of this movement to save First Baptist Church of Venice. And if nothing ever happens, naming the movement starter and keeping her name in the history books, let's make sure that we don't forget the name of Laddie Williams, because here is where it started and here's where we continue. And Laddie, thank you so much. We love you. We love you. And we're going to hear from Laddie.
I want to thank everybody for coming out and all our friends in our Save Venice group. Naomi, Ingrid, Ed, John, Margaret, Eileen in the car talking on the phone. Some people not here, Lydia Ponce. Other people that, Sarah. Other people that aren't here, we send our blessings out to them, but we also say thank you to everybody who sat here with me year after year after year after year. Give yourselves a hand. We did it. When they told us we wouldn't do it, we said, you're not going to tell us what we're not going to do, because if you fight, you win. And that's what we have to remember, because I want to say that I welcome Mr. Reese's granddaughter here for coming over and supporting us. That man was amazing. Had it not been for him, we wouldn't have what we have here in this 1.1 mile radius called Oakwood. And I have a shirt on that I want you guys to all look at, because we were all self-sufficient and self-sustained in these 10 blocks. And these are all the stores and occupancies, restaurants that we had here in this 1.1 mile radius. And I'm proud because we did it and we sustained and we were here. This church, this certificate of occupancy states a lot. And had it not been for our ancestors, we wouldn't have had this place. We wouldn't have had the beauty of being by the beach. Nobody really wanted to live down here, but we did. And we made Venice, and we're going to continue to make Venice because they can't run us out. We're going to be here, we're going to fight, and we need to get reparations for this 1.1 block radius because it was stolen from us. And I'm already talking to a lot of people about it, so I'm going to talk about it with our group. We meet every Tuesday, trying to keep our motors revved up and going. So We deserve to have our reparations, just like Bruce's Beach got theirs, Yahoo, and Santa Monica is getting theirs. So we want to congratulate Santa Monica also. We have a lot to be proud of. And we had a multi-ethnic community down here. My good friend Pam Kranz, may she rest in peace. She grew up with me. I wish Joey would come. He was a Japanese American. His property was saved by a black family during the Japanese internment. So we helped each other mightily down here. We didn't turn our backs on anybody. We loved each other. We may have argued, because that's going to happen in family, but we made it. And we did it with pride, and we did it with joy, and now we do it with great, great respect for the families that are still here, helping us fight, helping us to maintain a black history that is so strong within these 10 blocks, and then some. The Beach Boardwalk, thank you to Mr. Tabor and Mr. Reese for being the pioneers they were down on the beach. Shoe shop, the bike shop. I can't remember. Sonya, what else did Grandpa have? The bike shop, the shoe shop, the decorating company, the car repair. That's the one I remember. Remember driving that big old 66 Chevrolet Bel Air up into there, and they would fix it. I don't know how, because the car looked bigger than the shop, but they did it. So we have so much history, as Naomi stated, to be proud of. I remember playing down on the Venice Beach in the oil, and it would get all over our pants, our skin, everything. Down on the beach when the oil fields. I'd like to know where all that money went to, because that was Oakwood. That was supposed to be promised to the Oakwood pavement, and that was a lot of money that was made in Venice. We now want to keep going, keep fighting, because with that said, we can get back what we need and what we deserve down here. Our children should be well educated at all the schools that are here in Venice, especially Broadway and Westminster, Venice High, and Mark Twain. We shouldn't have to have our kids not have enough books to go around in the school, because Venice has made so much money for the city of LA. That's why we were an independent city. And many people talk about the fact that we should have stayed an independent city, with Venice Boardwalk making #2 designation under Disneyland. But I do believe we're first. For some reason, I do believe we're first, just because how many people come through, and how many songs have been sang about Venice Beach, how many Rihanna came to Venice Beach and loved it. My boys were her bodyguards, and she said, this is fantastic. So Rihanna came, and nobody even saw her, knew what she looked like, nothing. But she came, and she had a glorious time walking the boardwalk, seeing all the different talent that's down there in Venice. So our next speaker, she went across the street. I will keep talking, but let's bow our heads and say a prayer in front of this beautiful, magnificent church that was built by our African American ancestors. God, thank you for waking us up this morning. Thank you for bringing us here to this destination. Thank you for all my friends that I've made. I really appreciate every single one of them. We become family along with our fight. We become people that respect one another, and we are people who love one another. And that LOVE is what's going to keep us going and make us surpass every wish that we have for our community. I want to welcome Jataun on the cell phone right here. Can you guys say happy birthday? And let's sing happy birthday to her. All right? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jataun.
Happy birthday
To you. Woo! Thank you, God, for bringing Jataun here to our group this morning. And I just want to say, this has been very, very nice for all of us. And I want to bring up our next speaker, which will be Kendra. Kendra Moore is president of the 15 buildings that are spread out throughout Venice. That Naomi wrote the grant to get those buildings built, and they have served their purpose. And now we have a wonderful president, Kendra Moore. Thank you, Kendra. That's some more Black History fact. Naomi wrote the grant for those 15 buildings. So see, we're rich in culture down here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, my Black history in Venice. I was born and raised here. I went to church here. When it was across the street, I was a very little girl. I remember when we walked from the church, opening the doors, I was yay high. And Venice is the heart of my soul, third to the Lord. The Lord is first, then myself, and then this community. I love this community because it's diverse. And I love it, Venice. From block to block to block, everyone here in Venice knew every person on their block, the next block, all through Venice. And every mother, grandmother that is not here today, smiling down, was a safety net for the children in Venice. Even if they didn't really know your parent, but they knew somebody who knew your parent, didn't mean that they couldn't tell me the street lights is on, go home. It was always a safety net to keep the children, the peoples, the families safe in Venice. And Venice is just, it's changed, but the heart and soul of Venice has not went anywhere. Maybe the people have left and moved somewhere else because of gentrification, or maybe because of their own choices. But the soul and heart of the people who was able, and their grandparents was able to buy here, way back when it was nothing but dirt road and nothing but water flooding the streets, and the people have to get in little sailboats to get to their cars or jobs. They left their souls and their hearts here in Venice. And those that are still here, we're here to carry it on. Whether it's Black, Latino, Caucasian, it doesn't matter. Japanese, it doesn't matter. We all lived here together. We built Venice here together. We ran these streets together. We played at Oakwood Park every Saturday like these children across the street. Oakwood would be filled from one diamond to the next diamond to the basketball courts, full of children enjoying each other, having fun, running, playing tag. I had a good legacy here in Venice. Am I willing to give it up? No. Am I willing to fight? I'm gonna fight, fight, fight. Thank you.
Today we're talking about our legacy. We're talking about our past, talking about now. And we cannot forget our history lest we repeat that part of our history that is unacceptable. So when Laddie and Kendra say we're going to fight, That means we're going to stand our ground.
Woo! Of course.
That means that we're not going to be pushed out of our community. That means that we're going to live our lives here, recognizing the contributions that African Americans have made to this community. That is our legacy. Families that live here, Kendra's family, Laddie's family, my family, the Powells, the Jacksons, the Smiths. We can go on and on naming the families that built this community. People who, blood, sweat, and tears, built this church. Built the church across the street before it became this church. Attended the church on San Juan and 4th. The people who fought to save this church. And for us, who continued to fight after they lost it in the courts, to say you may have lost it in the courts, but we're going to bring it back from the street. The fight is not over. Our days of creating legacy are not over. Every single day that you are here, living in this community, you owe it to the community, to yourself, to the families, and the other people who are here still building this community, to do everything within your power to make sure that it is a place of livability, to make sure that it is a place that respects the legacy and the history of people who were here before. The people who were here before. I think that the biggest issue for us is that when we have new developers come into the community, they don't come in to build and become a part of the community. They come in to build and separate the community. They come in to build and to eradicate the community when they tear down our houses and bulldoze over the properties, and they think that they can bulldoze over our history. That is not possible. And the reason that that is not possible, because of every one of you that's sitting out there. It's not possible for those of us who are not here today but who would want to be. It's not possible for those of us who in our heart know that Venice is our community. It is where we were born. It is where we were bred. It is where we made it what it is. And that should not be forgotten. And like our ancestors before us, who built this church, who had the Women's Center on 6th and San Juan, who created their own Women's Center where they had teas, where they supported Girl Scout meetings, where they allowed elected officials to come and speak on what it is that they wanted in the community. It was a Women's Center right in the middle of our community on 6th and San Juan that was created by African American women who lived right here in this community. We need to build the history. We need to make it possible for people to read it, to see pictures of it like the ones that we have here on the fence, the ones that we still have to bring out of our closets and out of our trunks and out of our attics that show who we were, who we are, where we have been, and where we're going as a people. So I'd like to bring Eileen up because what Kendra said is important.
Can you hold that for Jataun?
We did not do this by ourselves, meaning African Americans. The strides that we have made in history have never just been by ourselves alone. So Eileen, I welcome you to talk about your history here in Venice, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Naomi. Is it working? Yes. I moved to Venice in the 70s. I moved to Venice in the 70s. I had been coming to Venice since I was a 9-year-old to the beach. But when I moved here, I moved to 3rd and Broadway. I was well taken care of by the grandmothers in this community. My husband worked at Paper Mate with the Murphy boys. I was invited into Grandma Murphy's house. She sat me down, she gave me the rules. She told me, stay off the street, you're too little, and she saved me. I had Grandma Murphy, then I had Patricia Witherspoon, aka Sugar, holding my hand. Pamela Anderson, who is here in spirit today, she was going to come. Oh, okay. And Jataun. All the women, and if I'm forgetting women and some of the men, I'm just blessed and I'm very grateful and I'm very dedicated to decreasing the gentrification. When I left 3rd and Broadway, I went over to Venice. Then I was with all the Vatos in the V13, and I still kept coming back here and getting the love and the support and the nurturing that I needed. Then I moved over to the President's Row neighborhood in 82, where it was still being redlined in 82 against the law. Because as soon as I moved into that home, I was told you can never sell to a black person. And that was 1982. And now we come to today, and I'm so proud that we were able to get the historical status of this wonderful church with the beacon that many of us grew up looking at and being a part of the community. And thank you for everything Venice has done. We need to keep our community strong, and we will fight.
You hear Jataun? She said, I will. She said, right on. And she's in Atlanta right now.
Does the microphone, does it separate because,
Oh, I can hear her.
I can hear her.
say it again, put the phone up to say it time.
Jataun, go ahead and say it again. Shoot. Are you there, Jataun? Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you guys.
Woo!
Thank you very much.
Hi, Jataun.
Get well, Jataun, from Sonya.
We love you, Jataun.
I love all you guys too. I really do.
Thank you.
She's getting better.
She was in the hospital last week. Yeah.
But she's okay.
They can hear. You guys can hear that, right? She
said,
said, "Thank you from the bottom of her heart. Make her proud."
Woo!
She's proud.
Thank you.
That's Eileen's Willie. Okay.
Will this reach right next to me? It should reach. Okay, we have someone who's not able to climb the stairs, but's gonna, Wilma, right?
Okay, so,
Genevelyn.
oh, Genevelyn, yes. So, Genevelyn has agreed because we want to hear from everyone, and I know you've been in the community a while. In the 50s?
Yes.
Okay, so when you moved into the Oakwood community, do you remember
Hey,
where you lived at that
Can you
time?
cross her?
I came from Santa Monica.
Okay, I came from Santa Monica too. but you know what people don't know? A lot of people that were living in Venice came from Santa Monica, and then a lot of people in Santa Monica came from Venice. So these two communities were really the African American areas in which black people could live in Santa Monica and Venice. So we were just kind of traversing back and forth as families and as areas where it was restricted covenant in both areas. So when you moved here, where did you move from before Santa Monica?
Arkansas.
Arkansas. And what part of Arkansas?
Oh, wow. Waldo, Arkansas.
Waldo. So you know that there's a great contingency of folks from Arkansas in Venice.
Yes.
Okay, so you came in the 50s. So did you come after Reverend Holmes, the pastor of this church at the time? Yes, he was pastor here for over 45 years. So a lot of people came to California after after Reverend Holmes came, he brought a bunch of people from Arkansas that came here and became members of this church. And so, do you still live in Venice?
I do.
Where do you live, man? What street do you live on?
I live in Indiana.
On Indiana.
Downstairs from Kendra.
Okay. All right. So you came with Kendra.
Yes.
Yes. And so you're part of the legacy of Venice, of Oakwood. You have children?
Yes, I do.
And how many children do you have?
5.
So your children grew up in this community, and did they also attend different programs over at Oakwood?
Yeah.
Mm, 2 of them did. Okay. Last names?
Boys.
Oh, yes, I know them. Well, you know, we're so glad that you came out today. Thank you. You're one of our elders in the community. We appreciate who you are. We appreciate that you're still here. We appreciate that you raised your children here and that you're sitting here with us today. So I want everybody to give recognition. And thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to say in reference to the Venice Oakwood community that in terms of where we are now and where you would like for us to go? Any statements you'd like to make? Go ahead.
About when we were fighting for the 15 buildings and we were having meetings back and forth with Washington, D.C. And, well, I'm just going to
Go ahead.
So back when we were fighting a few years back to save the 15 buildings for the Venice community, which is Breezes Del Mar now, but was Holiday Venice before. And we were having meetings back and forth with Washington, D.C. back and forth, and we had a few of HUD members to come to Venice. Her apartment was one of the apartments where we sat and we met in to help fight, and they made the choice then that they would support us in her apartment.
All right. All right. Yeah. So I want to get your name on record because we're recording this and we want to put it in our archives. So say your whole name, please.
Genevelyn Wesley.
Thank you, Miss Wesley.
Thank you, Miss
We
Wesley.
appreciate it.
Appreciate I'll be coming back again.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, Kendra, thank you. We'd love to have you again. It's so important for all of our people within the community, and we talked about getting some of our people who know our history, who made our history, and who came here today.
Alvin. About Nabi. I know.
I'm Alvin Christman. My mother was a Tabor. This is 4th generation.
Nice.
I've lived in here since 1910. There was 11 families. There was 11 family Tabors, and the Reeses were cousins. They all lived here in this area.
Thank you.
And now we only have 3 Tabor families and 2 cousins left in the community. That's it. There were 6 brothers and 5 sisters came here from Louisiana.
And your family, your mom lived on this street.
Right down the street, 615 Westminster, yes. I live there now.
Yeah, his Nabi. Come on, say mom's name.
Oh, okay.
Your mom's name.
Novelette Bailey.
Nabi.
Well, she remarried. She's, her maiden name is Tabor.
Okay. And so the significance of Westminster is that this really was the pathway, the legacy street from which many African Americans lived on. The Tabors lived on this street. In a minute, Sue's going to talk about the Tabor house because she was very instrumental in getting that historically designated. But Westminster and San Juan and Broadway, this was the hub of African American development, neighborhood growth, and where centralized where things happen.
And Santa Clara.
And Santa Clara. And then we had this whole 1.1, you're right, absolutely, Santa Clara right there next to San Juan. We had this whole about it, it sounds like it's really small. It was compact, but it was our world, and we made it the best.
Yeah. Good, bravo.
Thank you, Alvin.
And the Reese and the Tabors were first cousins.
First cousin.
Reese's and the Tabors were first cousin, and here we have Miss Reese right here, alive and well. Thank you so much.
Yay, Sonya!
You would be the third generation, fourth generation?
Third generation.
Third generation.
My granddaughter's fifth generation.
And she's fifth generation. Wow, that's legacy. That's legacy.
No, at the soccer.
So at this time, we're going to ask Sue Kaplan.
Bought the bungalows. There are 8 bungalows there to house his family, and they used materials from the pier after the fire, and he brought his family over. Charles, John Quincy, right? Yeah.
There were 6 of them.
Oh, I don't know all 6. I didn't realize it was such a big family.
I do.
Anyway, there's a big fence, and the woman who bought them is not too friendly towards us. So even though I wrote the landmark application, she wouldn't allow me in to even gaze at it. I won't tell you who she is. But we all grew up with her family. So I prepared something about this extraordinary building that is just 1 block down on 6th and Santa Clara. San Juan. We know about the Reeses and Tabors. And we have many monuments to their legacy. We have the Kinney Tabor House, and we have the Westminster, and soon we're going to have the Arthur Reese and Gertrude House.
Beautiful.
But I want to talk about the others we are yet to learn about. But we do know about this extraordinary group of women, and that's what your focus should be now, is to find out who the women were who contributed to the wonderful history of Oakland. And I'm sure that many of you have walked past that house on 6th and San Juan and just looked at it and said, what in the world is this? It's a small, modest, green building, hasn't been inhabited for years, decades. But now we know it was the clubhouse of a remarkable group of women, the Monday Women's Club. And this was a black women's group active in Venice, maybe even as far back as 1915.
The building was donated by
Don't steal my show. And it was one of the many groups active in the state, these black women's clubs. There was even a state and national federations representing them. And it was formed at a time when blacks were barred from the white women's groups. And so they formed their own, and they did exactly the same activities and community events that the white groups did. And we know some of the names of the foundings. There's Martha Sheffield. Tell me if you recognize any of these names. Martha Sheffield?
Yes.
Bessie Stanton? Oh my goodness, I have to talk to you.
Sue.
Cora Hamilton? And Nora Boyd? Okay. And yes. There are a lot of your family lived on Vernon as well. And Westminster was another street that a lot of you lived in. But I think the most influential and best known was an educator and involved in almost anything to do with the black community in LA. Her name was Etta B. Moxley.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
She lived in, that's right, she lived in Santa Monica. But many of these groups were both Santa Monica, yes.
It's like the Santa Monica Venice reunion.
Right, exactly. And so she was president of the California Association of Colored Women's Clubs. And she needs a study of her own. And the group served their community by organizing social events, dances, and game night. And they were also an educational group, providing lectures on various topics, invited guests to speak and entertain. In the 1930s, they held many of the political events that presented politicians running for office to the Oakwood community, allowing them to introduce themselves to the black community and to learn what is important to the community. The newspapers at the time wrote about how the black vote was crucial to these candidates. And Arthur Reese was relentless in organizing these meetings, and many were held at the clubhouse. They also put on holiday events for the children, Christmas, tree lighting, Halloween, and they provided food baskets for those in need. And they held many fundraisers in the guise of entertainment to be able to provide scholarships to the children of Oakwood and for this church. And other life cycle events were celebrated here. It was an Oakwood group serving Oakwood. There were just 2 clubs in LA that did have a clubhouse to call their own. And just like Arthur Reese and Irving Tabor, they had a Kinney connection too. In 1926, Mary Rhodes, and I thank Laddie for this, president of the group and housekeeper for Winifred Kinney, Kinney's second wife, Mary convinced her to donate the garages to the Women's Club to use as a clubhouse. And in 1926, on the same date, Irving moved the Kinney house to its present site, and the garages were moved to their present site, where it is still today. Opening day was noted in the California Eagle. The club opened a most beautiful clubhouse, a neat stucco with a spacious club room, beautiful in its appointments, and everything that goes to make a women's clubhouse. Mrs. Kinney attended. Now that we know about this building, imagine for a moment what it must have been like to attend its events. People coming with a purpose, ready to party, or ready to learn. The clubhouse decorated fantastically by Arthur Reese, the town decorator, and his wife, Gertrude, providing the music. Now, think for another moment about bringing the clubhouse back to life, restoring it and filling it with people and programs that would do these women proud. A clubhouse for the community of Oakwood. But that dream is in jeopardy. It has been bought by a developer who we don't know yet. And I think if only we could raise the money to make that happen, to bring it back to the Oakwood community as a center for activities. But I'll leave you with the words of one of Oakwood's founders, Arthur Reese, who responded when Alvin to open the Santa Monica beaches to the black community to play out. He said, "We get nothing unless we fight for it." After 100 years, it's sad to think that this is still true. And to you, say Venice, keep fighting the good fight.
Yes!
It was wonderful to learn about this Monday Women's Group. And I asked many people, many of your Oakwood neighbors, no one had heard about it or had a vague memory of it, but nobody knew what it was or what was going on there. So it was wonderful to, with David Ewing, we just combed through the records and found so much about this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Applause for Sue. Sue, thank you so much. Thank you for coming out. So much. The Bishop E.L. Holmes Square. That is what this place right here is called. We're going to look, well, we already have the Women's Club. That is a historic designated site. We're going to do our best, as Sue has said, to find the funds to rebuild it and to make it what it was, but even better, to build back better. The Women's Center on 6th and San Juan.
And get it out of the hands of developers.
Get it out of the hands of developers.
Get Oakwood out of the hands of developers.
Get Oakwood out of the hands of developers. Right, so I want to recognize some people that are here with us. John, thank you for coming. He was invited by Margaret, and we thank you so much for being here. I also want to recognize Roy and his children over there on the corner. Those are Laddie's folks. Roy is Laddie's son. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Roy. And Tomi, I'm going to call Tomi up. Tomi's sitting there on the ground. She's lived in Venice for over 20-some years, so I'm going to ask her to speak. Where's Jade?
Jade's right there.
Oh, I didn't see her. Hi, Jade. And so we'll be asking you all to speak for a few minutes. And then also I want to make sure that Teresa gets an opportunity to speak, but I think everyone's here that wants to talk about their history and legacy of the community, that we certainly give you the opportunity to do that. We don't have anywhere to go. We're here for you today. Thank you.
And with my ex-adult students, whenever they want to be.
Well, thank you.
I am a retired ESL teacher. I used to teach at Venice Adult School. And I originally lived in Topanga Canyon, which is a very diverse community, and I loved that about Topanga. So when I moved I actually moved borderline Santa Monica, Venice, and then about 3 years ago, I moved into Venice. So I'm a newcomer, whereas our 50-year-old resident. Anyhow, I also am seeing all the developers coming in, and I really don't like it. They're knocking down gorgeous old homes and building these boxes, one of which on the next street close to where I live looks like a prison with a guard tower. So I'm all about preserving the old. I originally, when I first separated from and divorced, I lived in Penmar Apartments. I loved that apartment.
Yay!
I know.
Thank you.
And there was a big fight, and that was finally declared historical, so they can't tear it down. Thank you, God.
Yes.
And I have never seen this church before. I was walking with a friend and I saw that tiny little church somewhere in Venice. And my girlfriend and I just stopped and walked in, and there were all these beautiful ladies with these gorgeous hats. And anyway, I was telling Ingrid about that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did go to UCLA in the 70s. I'm representing the Asian contingency. I was the only non-black person in this humongous Black History class. And coincidentally, our instructor was Japanese. And he was so knowledgeable that at the end of every lecture, he got a standing ovation. He was amazing.
What was his name?
His name was it started with a T, and how many years ago is that? I can't remember. I can't remember his name because I'm 74 now, so that was a long time ago. But he was an outstanding instructor, and I'm one of 9 children, and many of us are teachers, so I'm so proud of having been a teacher. So I used to teach at 37th Street near USC, and I just want to tell you this because I just got to tell you. The art teacher there ran into Sidney Poitier because he just passed. I'm very sad about that.
You too.
He ran into Sidney Poitier at an art shop in Westwood, and she just walked up to him and said, "Hey, would you come and inspire our students and speak?" He came. Then he came the next year. Then he came the next year. Okay, if none of you have seen the Japanese memorial on the corner of Venice and Lincoln, Sharon Hayashibari with her students started that. They raised over $100,000 it commemorates the place where all the Japanese had to convene before they went to camp. And everyone except my younger sister and I were in camp. So I went to all the fundraisers, and then eventually Phyllis I thought to myself, I'm so close to that memorial. I should have a little reception at my home. So I said, Phyllis, will you call me? She never called me. Then the next year she emailed me and said, I hate to be brash, but would you mind if we had the top 10 donor reception at your home? And I just finished my Japanese garden. I said, well, that's why I told you to call me last year. So when I found out they were politicians, I was sorry that I volunteered, but it was a very nice reception. So here I live in Venice. I believe in, you know, they chased all my students out of Penmar Apartments when, you know, the developer or whoever bought it started renting. So, you know, and then after the whole thing was ended and they declared it historical, they offered people money to go back. Even a couple of my friends were there, but, you know, by then everybody had settled somewhere else, so I don't think. So anyway, we just have to stop these things from happening in our community because, you know, I believe in the poor, the disenfranchised, the people who were sent to prison camps when my Asian brothers and sisters were all in post in Arizona for that. So, you know, I just believe in justice. So I hope that we can get something going here. Thank you.
Watch it, watch it.
Thank you. Tomi, can I?
By the way, my name is Tomi Yamato. My father started a service bureau to help Asian people. He was born in Hawaii, but his family's from Japan. So he had an employment agency, a travel agency, and he helped all the people coming over from Hawaii and from Japan. He helped them find housing, jobs at his employment agency.
Beautiful.
My father was a philanthropist and a wonderful role model, you know, in that way. He was a scoundrel on the side, but we won't talk about that. Tomi, Yamato. Yamato Employment Agency, Yamato Travel, but my sister, who ran it for 50 years, just passed away last year at the age of 90, so she kept it going.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Across the street there, Mr. Dion McKenzie. Thank you so much. You just heard about this yesterday, so I appreciate you coming today. We have many more dynamic, interesting speakers to bring forward. I want to ask Ingrid, one of our mighty, mighty members that have been with us from the beginning.
Don't go shy now.
Over the long haul, so please come. And then I know Teresa is still here, so Teresa after Ingrid and Ed is going to speak. He's one of our group. John, are you going to speak today?
Well, I'm writing it all down.
Okay.
What about,
all right. So Ingrid, come, please.
Come, Ingrid.
Thank you so much.
What about Becky?
Oh, Becky's shaking her head.
Okay. Amanda?
Oh, Amanda. I saw
No?
Amanda. Okay. But I want to recognize Amanda.
We want to recognize
Stewart.
Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda, for all your work that you've done. Thank you.
I love her. She was my savior at Lincoln Place. That was in the year, well, that was only 15 years ago.
Louder.
That was only 15 years ago. But I have lived at Lincoln Place since 1988. And our organization, the Lincoln Place Tenants Organization, was really like a union we created with a 501c3 because we had this grand idea that we wanted to own it. So we wanted to buy it out and have a non-profit ownership and management for the whole property, which is 35 acres and 800 apartments. But, you know, they were mid-century, which means once they turned 50, we could apply for, and the applicant for that was Amanda, apply for landmark status. And landmark status, which is a federal status, but because we had not been able to gain the city historic cultural monument status, it was denied. And then we went to the state and asked for the Historic Resource Commission's designation, or at least they're finding that the whole property would be eligible for historic resource status. So we got that, which kind of put a big hole into the plans of the then owner out of town, Denver, Colorado, biggest apartment owner in the country, and their MO was, you know, buying up old apartments with old and poor people in it, and you know, painting it and reselling it. So that's how they made their millions. But we were not having it, so we did everything.
Don't cross that sheet. Sorry.
Yeah, kids. We need that music.
Troy.
Oh, he's watching out. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, eventually we won some things in court, lost some things in court, and I never left. I kind of occupied completely empty buildings, and there were only 10 of us tenants left that wouldn't go anywhere. We stayed put because we kind of were convinced that we were on the right path. And indeed we were, so here we are. I still live there. I love it. I love that place. I love my apartment. And we have lots of, you know, Venice newcomers living there, the people that are into IT work and all that, so they can pay the new rent, apparently, which is at least 3 times as much as we old returned tenants are paying. And, you know, I'm just a lucky woman because I could not afford to live anywhere else. And so there. Okay. When I read the Beachhead article about the sale of this property, this church building, there was an invitation to join a group called Save Venice, and I appeared, and there was Laddie sitting by herself that day, only that day, not much. Yeah, only that day, not much longer. And we kind of just hung out and talked, and I wanted to ask lots more questions, but she told me everything that was important, and I my eyes and ears went up, and my heart was beating, and I thought, my God, that's a great reason to join this group. And so I've been sitting with her since 2018 on the steps, and we became bigger and bigger. And you look at the circle over there on that poster. That's what we did every Sunday. We had prayer meetings and strategy meetings, and you know, it just kind of grew into what it became. And fortunately,
Royce, sit down.
Fortunately, after 4 years of trying to get the historic cultural monument designation for the building, we were finally successful with the help of Mike Bonin, who finally turned the corner and said, he apologized publicly in city council for not having taken Black history much more serious, and that he would help get this over the hurdle. And he certainly did, and we celebrate him and everybody that was part of it. You know, every little step was important. And we are proud of it, but that fight is not over. We all know that this building cannot become a mansion for a millionaire. They would never be welcome. I would be protesting right here in front of the building every day if that were ever the case. And so there has to be a way. And you know, we're looking at like weird things like, that's it. I got the wave. I can talk forever about this.
So we're here to talk about life stories for our life here in the Oakwood community. Life is a song worth singing, a prayer worth speaking ever so surely, not pleading, but thanking, rejoicing. Life is a cry worth crying, with fresh from the tears emerges a new you. Born of the revelations pushed up from your spirit through the tears that flow freely and allow the same freedom for you. Life is a question questioned and an answer answered. Deeper and deeper, with greater knowing and clearness each time you question, and the soul speaks its answer. Life is a breath worth taking, an exhale worth giving, the give and take of life. Life is a call to the awakened spirit. Teach me, open the inward door, and outpour the hidden stories. Life is a story worth telling. Listen, just listen. Hear me, see me heal.
Whose poem? Is that your poem?
Is that your original composition?
This is my original composition. Yes, I wrote this. So, we have another speaker coming up. Teresa, and then Ed after Teresa.
Ed!
Teresa's coming. Teresa has and being here.
This is not even a story. This is not a story about my Black history, because my Black history is here. But what I do want to say to Kendra, Naomi, Laddie, to everybody, to all of you that get out here and stomp the grounds and pave the way. You've stood on shoulders, those that come before you, you that do the work tirelessly. I commend you. You know, I live in one of those buildings that Naomi sat down and drafted the, what do you call it? The grant for. And I'm still here because of Kendra. She's the president of the company that got out and paved the way for us. So mostly I just want to say thank you to all of you that paved the way for so many shoulders to stand on. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I don't think it is an afternoon yet, but I'm happy to be here. I spent my first night in Venice on Cabrillo.
Wow.
And then I spent more time at 6th and Santa Clara. And Joy Baker was my landlord, of course.
Right.
And there was a church across the way that would rock out every so often. And fortunately, when I was living on Rennie, I saw a paper and they had a house for under 20 grand over here down in California. And I just walked in, saw the yard, and said sold. So I'm one of those, I think it was CJ that asked me why wasn't I here? And I said, what are you talking about? So I walked with CJ here, ran into Laddie and the community that was here, and I'm happy to say that I'm now part of, I feel more like part of Venice, since I basically got to work and did nothing but work. Laddie sort of educated me. I mean, when she told me that the cops would bring her from east of Lincoln back into Venice, I'm like, what? I mean, I lived in Venice. I was not aware that stuff like that happened back in the 80s. And we're talking about the 80s. And I'm like, what? So, should we be surprised that Trump is so popular? You know, the epitome of the ugly American. So,
a lot.
I would have to say that yes, we are a revolution that started back when that we're trying to perfect, and we have a long ways to go. And I'm happy to have a community that's fighting for the future that we believe in. And I'm hoping that behind us will be a community center, that will be again a shelter for people who want to have community here.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. That was great. Alison. Thank you. Alison Jeffries. Well, she can tell you who she is.
Hello, my name is Alison Rose Jefferson, and I am a historian, and I've been looking at the historic African American communities in the beach area. I have a book out called Living the California Dream, African American Leisure Sites During the Jim Crow Era, where I did mention the Venice community, and I did talk about some of the early folks that lived here. But now I'm doing a little more research, and there's a few people here today that have contributed to helping me with this research, and there's a few other people that are here today that are going to help me with some other research that I have been meaning to call. I just hadn't gotten to her yet. It's so wonderful that you all have rallied around understanding the importance of your legacy in a public way, and that you have rallied to gathering the knowledge in a more formal way, even though it's still kind of lax, but it's a more formal way than it was. We got to get into people's garages and trunks and pull out all these beautiful photographs and other records that are available, because they're here. They're here. I was over at Alvin's house one day, and he took me into his man cave. It was where he has all this stuff stored. And he pulled out a couple of newspaper articles that it was like, you have that? And then I went to visit one of his cousins who lives up in Lake Tahoe, and she has 10 feet of boxes full of stuff. 10 feet, okay? She has photographs, she has other documents. Sonya, when she could find it, has a bunch of stuff in her garage. And I'm sure that there's some other people here. I know, where is Naomi? Naomi has some stuff in her files that she's going to be pulling out. So all of these things are really important. Your materials are very important to help to tell the story of the community. And I hope to be able to help you all do that in the work that I am doing now in looking more at the Venice history. Thank you.
Is there a black archive for LA now?
So Venice Heritage Museum has a bunch of stuff, and then Sue is going to say something because she has, there's a board member there who I can't think of her name right now, who has written a lot about Venice, and she has materials. But in terms of a focused archive, there's nothing that is specifically a public archive. It's mostly things that are in people's private collections, but hopefully in the future, when this becomes a community center and the women's center becomes, the women's club becomes a community center, there will be an archive. So Sue wants to say something about archive.
There are actually two, but many of the universities around, Loyola, Marymount, UCLA, and USC have archives, but the two most important is the Venice Historical Society. They've been around for 35 years, and I know their collection is a serious collection. The other place is California State University at Long Beach, where Arnold Springer, I think most of you know Arnold. He passed away a couple of months ago. He was the eccentric but brilliant resident who wore long dresses and big beard and he was over 6 feet tall. Very impressive. But he spent the last 50 years of his life gathering documents, pulling them from the newspapers and codifying them. And now we have 5 volumes, 5 books celebrating Venice from him. And they'll be available shortly, but if you're interested, talk to me about it.
Thank you. None of those archives have materials about Black people in Venice. And that's what we're working on right now.
Sonya. Thank you. This is
My name is Sonya Reese Greenland. I'm the granddaughter of Arthur Lloyd Reese and Gertrude Cersei Reese. And I am so happy, and I want to congratulate all of you for what you've done here in making this church historical. My grandfather was one of the founding members of this church. He was the building committee this is the 3rd church. The first church was at 5th and San Juan. The second church was across the street, which is one I went to. And my grandfather was the chairman of the building committee, and he hired Paul Williams to design the church. The church was raised and carried to Los Angeles somewhere.
Vermont.
89th in Vermont. I want to go there. I've been looking for it for years. And grandfather had a plaque in that church. It was stolen, but he had also a window with his name in gold. He donated the land, and the community and the Kennys and the Cerseys, the Tabors, everyone donated money to build the church. Not only was it the First Baptist Church of Venice, but it was a center for the communal assembly for politicians, events, the Olympic participants would come to our community, would meet there. All kinds of political and children's groups would meet there. It was a community center, per se, not just a Black Baptist church. And that I'm very proud of. Our family is very mixed, and we've always been invested in we're fortunate to be invested in a multicultural community that is so unique, and I want that to continue. So yes, we're going to fight for that. Grandfather taught me, when you buy land, you don't give it up. If the house burns down, you can camp on the land, but don't ever sell your land. He's from the slavery times, and so that's what we've done. Great-grandfather's house is down the street on Westminster. Grandfather's house is on 6th and Santa Clara. His brother bought at 6th and San Juan. Sorry, his niece sold it. But we still have our community. And the family was mixed, the community was mixed. It's known as a Black community. It was a Jewish community before that. We want to keep it a community for everyone. Thank you.
1945. Some of my children were actually born here in Venice, the rest in St. John's, like me. We've been here since the 1900s. My family wore raccoon coats for the first, the Olympics we had downtown. We had the railroad tracks, and we had family here. Everybody's somewhat related, believe it or not. I tell my kids, don't kiss anybody until you know you're related to them. Because it has come up several times. I'd like Venice to be back the way it was, where people say hello, and they're friendly, and they don't have Like on my block, I'm the only one with not a 6-foot fence. Not because I didn't want one, I can't build it because it's on a corner with a stop sign. But I'd like everybody to be able to not live next door to a 30-foot wall and a 100-room hotel that has a 30-foot wall on electric, and the lots across the street that made the water come up when they built it, $5,500 for a 1-bedroom. I want people to be able to live down here the way they used to live down here, for the families to come back and to be a family again. And I wish they'd save the box, swap meet, so that people could buy things at a regular price instead of the price that everything is nowadays, that our kids really can't afford $400 shoes on the boardwalk. But I'd like everybody to have a nice spring soon, St. Patrick's Day, and I hope everybody stays in Venice. Not that I didn't ever think of moving, but I couldn't take my kids anywhere.
Is anyone else or?
For leave scribing for a minute. There he goes. Hold on, give me a minute. Sorry.
All right, I'll stretch out a little bit. Yeah, the Venice newspapers. What's that?
Tell about your mom.
Well, yeah, I go way back with the beachhead. When I was this high, I used to follow my mom up and down the walk down streets with my sister in a baby stroller, and she'd hand out copies of the beachhead door to door and circulate a petition to stop the war in Vietnam and all. So I go a little ways back with the beachhead. My eldest aunt wrote for the beachhead in the late 60s. But anyway, the beachhead's been part of the fight for this church from the beginning. And I can say that each issue that's come out since late 2017 has had at least one article, and later, a few months later, one cartoon about this fight for this building. So we're in it for the long haul, and I believe that endurance beats strength. The forces that are in Venice, the gentrifying forces, the politically not so nice forces that want to do harm to Venice, they may be strong, they may be rich, they may have friends in low places, but we have endurance. We have the power to withstand and outlast them. I believe that the last man standing is the one who wins. 4 years, over 4 years now we've been fighting for this, and we're not getting weaker. As you can see, we're standing here in a crowd of people on camera. So we will win. It's imminent. Victory is imminent because we have greater spirit. This community, I've seen it last worse things a long time ago. The enemies of Venice now don't have a chance with our talent and our experience. So we'll be here. This church will be here. This church will open up. We'll be standing soon on the other side of these doors. And this will span out to the rest of the community. It'll send the message to all the other gentrifiers and all the other bad guys and whoever thinks they're going to get in office that we're not going anywhere. Venice is not going anywhere. And we're here today. This is supposed to be a Black History Month event. So that's the main thrust of this. That's been the core community of Venice for over a century now, going back, way back before anything. So this is just kind of the midway point. We're not at the end yet, but we've certainly come a long way. All right?
Yep. Thank you, John. All right. I want our audience, and they did not want to speak, but I just want to make sure that we acknowledge you. We have Judy. Where was she? Just random?
Here she
Kaplan? Oh. Judy, raise your hand so people know you. Yes. Ola Mitchell. Ola sitting right here. Ola raised her children here. You may know Stanley Mitchell.
Yep.
He's been recording, he's made a movie about Venice, and Ola is one of our most involved community members. She's on the phone telling us she's a historian about what's going on in Venice and trying to keep us in the know about things that are happening. So thank you, Ola. She didn't want to speak. I tried to get her up. And Kristina, can you come up? please. Kristina, the Venice Heritage Museum. Welcome to Kristina.
Thank you, Naomi. Hi, everyone. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see some familiar faces. So I'm here both as a center through the museum eventually, and so we're working hard. We're an all-volunteer team. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here and to work with you all, because you all are what makes this museum project possible. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So when we're telling our stories, we tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right? I mean, that's all about our history. So, do you all know that we didn't like the name Oakwood?
Yeah, we did. We fought.
We did not accept the name Oakwood. It was not a name that we gave to ourselves. It was the name that the LAPD gave to this African American 1.1 square mile area, that they wanted to make a distinction between this bad part of Venice separate from the good part of Venice. And the bad part of Venice was where black folks and minorities and Latino folks lived, and any other people of color that did not meet the definition of the parting ways that they wanted to put in place for the new gentrification for people that would be moving into the community. So Oakwood was given the name.
What year?
1987. 1987.
It was named Oakwood?
It was part of a strategic plan. The strategic plan was to...
Well, but it wasn't officially.
They called... Well, we always knew the park as Oakwood, but the place wasn't known as Oakwood. When I grew up in the community, the area that we lived in was simply called Venice. We didn't designate it as Oakwood or anything separate, but our world was the 1.1 square mile area. So when it became known as Oakwood through media, newspaper announcements, always with statistics about crime and people of color. And then came the, what do you call it? The police,
gang injunction.
The gang injunction. The gang injunction, which was a tool that LAPD used to, again, make a separation in the community. And that separation was through arrest and incarceration.
And coming in your house.
And using the excuse of drugs and other criminal acts alleged to break into your house at 6 o'clock in the morning. So no knock was not news to Venice. We understood what that is. It also meant that families were being broken apart. Because if you were designated a part of, or you're listed on the injunction list, it meant that you couldn't hang around, be around, visit with anyone else that was on the list. And it didn't matter if you were a brother, a sister. It didn't even matter if you lived in the same household as the other individual. Most of you know that my dissertation was African American men who give voice to the personal transition from criminality to desistance. And in that dissertation, I interviewed young men from the Venice community to talk about their criminal acts and the why and wherefore of that. And later, in the early 2000s, we found that the injunction was unconstitutional. Imagine that.
Thank you, Laddie.
People that had been arrested, people that had been incarcerated, people who didn't even know that they were on a list, identified on the injunction list. People who did not even know it until it became clear that the list was revealed in court when there was a lawsuit against the injunction. And it was said, oh, you know what? We're sorry.
Yeah.
It's unconstitutional. But even though it's unconstitutional, we're not going to do away with the list, just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case. But imagine the broken families. Imagine the people incarcerated. Imagine the dismantling of the community through the gang injunction. Imagine the many, many young black men who went to prison, and some are still in prison. Now, I'm going to say I'm a very pragmatic person. I have sons. I raised four boys. So I know what it is, the attraction of the streets, the attraction of the gangs. I know what it is to not have a father in the household. I know what it is for young men to seek solace, companionship, and acknowledgement through gangs. And I know what it is for the community to be designated in that kind of way, not through a helping hand for the community or for the benefit of the community, but again, for parting the ways for a different kind of community. Boy, why you so bad? I really don't know, was his reply. Could it be there's too many reasons to say? Could it be I was just born that way? No way, little boy. Ain't nobody just born bad. Then maybe it's cause some of the things that I never had. Some things that should have been, but the things that just never was. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's why. But since you asked the question, maybe you know the reason why. What makes a black boy grow up to be so bad? You think it's because of things I never had? Maybe it's about my slavery past. A history that is so deep in my bones that my soul cries out to be right, to right the wrong that lingers and lingers and lingers on. Could that be what makes black boys be so bad? Could be for far, far too many reasons for me to say, but it really don't matter much if nobody can make it all right, because I'm black and I ain't gonna never be white.
Thank God. Very nice. Thank God.
Laddie. Beautiful poem. That was very nice. We want to thank everybody for coming out, participating, and interested in what was Venice. As Naomi said, we fought that for years, trying not to become Oakwood. It was LAPD's way of labeling us and telling the developers that here's a black community, go on in and take it. And they led the way. My house was broken into 4 times because of my kids, and they were taken from us 4 times. And we survived, and I had to tell LAPD when they had all of us in the back room talking, they offered me $180,000 for my property. And you know what I told them? I didn't know LAPD was a realtor. When did you become a realtor? And I'm just trying to tell you how you can live. I said, you can't tell me how I can live. You know, you have to say that you're wrong. And we fought that gang injunction, ACLU, and we won. They're still not paying out like they should, but it was proven to be unconstitutional. And when I told my story, they couldn't believe it. And of course LAPD denied it, but that's okay because they deny everything. But we just have to fight. And when we fight, we win. And when we come out as strong as we've come out, we were told the Penskes would never let you have this place as historic. And we all told them, well, we'll see, because we're going to be sitting here like the people that we are on our ancestors' shoulders, because they fought to have this property. They fought to have this church built. They had a famous architect, as we all know, and that helped us, Paul Williams, to construct this church. So we're going to keep fighting, because Venice is owed reparations. I'm not even calling it Oakwood. Venice it needs reparations for what they came through here and allowed LAPD to do to us, and how they treated us as being here, and our parents being strong enough to buy a house, being black. Thank you, Joey Baker. He saw it, and he sold to African Americans and Latinos. And I want to say thank you to Joey Baker for opening it up. And I just want to say, if you own property here, please don't sell it. Even if you have to get an RV and put on there. If the house fall down, get an RV and put on there. Because there's nothing they can do about that RV being on that property, on that 50 by 50 lot.
If you take the wheels off.
Even if you take the wheels off, they can't do anything.
You can order, they call it the 2x4, the 2x2s, that look like RVs, but more like houses.
Yeah.
You can do whatever. You can put a tent up in there, but whatever you do, keep it. And teach your kids to keep it. And teach your kids' kids to keep it. And that's what my grandkids over there, I speak it every day to them, all of them. And I just want that to be spread throughout the community. We sat here 4 years, 4 long years. We had to convince Bonham we weren't going away. And I have to give Mike Bonham a commemoration, because he spoke about it in the city hall. And he spoke long, and he spoke from his heart. And he said he should have never ignored us when we came to him the first time. So I will always respect him. The VNC, Venice Neighborhood Council, people know that they're not any of our friends. It's 3 of them on there that are. But the rest of them, they never have. Mike Newhouse running for city council. Boo. Jim Murez running for city council. Boo. Tracy Park, she was just over on Jefferson and Washington. We got to be careful, folks. We got to know who we're voting for, and don't just vote for them because they're out there now campaigning that they love us. That's bullcrap. Because Mike Newhouse allowed that vote to go on about this church. Yep. And when I spoke to him, he didn't want to acknowledge it. I caught him in the park and embarrassed the heck out of him because he was playing with football over there with a black league. And I went over there, I got a big mouth, and I let him have it. He packed up his little stuff and got in his car and he left. The truth has to be known. Jim Murez, why do we have 3 lot ties? Jim Murez, why do we have a bus coming down 7th Street? Michael Newhouse. So be prepared to vote for who loves Venice. I can't tell you who to vote for, but learn about them, because they're not for Venice. And then city planning wants to build more housing, make it more condensed down here.
What's the designation that they want to make?
And the designation, cultural designation. So Venice Heritage Museum, we're going to need a letter from you. We're going to fight that too, because they can't have it. And we're not going to let them have it. So be careful, pay attention, get on the city plum website so you get all the notices. Because we got to fight them. This bus should never be coming down a residential community area. Buy a park. We can thank Newhouse for the tower that sits across the street from a park and near a preschool. We can thank him for that. I can go on and on and on, and I don't want to. I just want to say thank you to everyone who came out, and we're going to sing our song that we closed with for 4 years. Okay, so let's all stand. Amen, amen, amen. A little louder. Amen, 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 amen. Thank you. We love you. We appreciate you coming out. Thank you so much.
You want to just stay?
Martin and Malcolm.
That's it. I ran Newhouse out of Oakwood. That's right. There's refreshments there. And I want to say a big thank you to everybody. There's water, there's fruit. Please go for it.
Johnson, and I'm here to show a picture of the first group at the First Baptist Church. This is a junior boys course at First Baptist Church. This was the first group that was here. I just want to say we are glad to be here for Black History Month. And again, this is the junior boys course. Thank you.
Beautiful.